Hi, beautiful people. Last week I told you why I hate purity culture.
What if I want to have sex before I get married?
Well, I guess you just have to be prepared to die.
But I did not want to leave you guys there. A lot of your comments were about how you do believe sex should still be honored and cherished and special. So I really wanted to spend the upcoming weeks talking about different elements of sexuality, pornography and pleasure and sensuality and masturbation and all of these things that are really complicated when you're trying to be a good Christian girl. On that subject, I'm actually interviewing Dr. Julie Slattery for an upcoming podcast. I'm so excited because she wrote this book called Rethinking Sexuality, and I know that I'm quite liberal with some of my perspectives, so I think it's amazing to bring on people that are more conservative. Dr. Julie Slattery definitely believes in the sanctity of marriage. She wishes we would save ourselves from marriage. So bringing all that into account, she's still not judgmental. A lot of her writing, and she's written 10 books, are about sexual health and living as a sexual being and a Christian simultaneously. Something really interesting that Dr. Slattery brings up is her concept of sexual integrity. I truly believe that we can pretend that our body and our soul are two different things, but it's undeniable. Your soul resides in this body, and I really do believe that we should be learning how to honor that. It's not about shame and purity culture, but it is about striving to treat ourselves better and to treat our sexual partners in a way that they deserve. So if there's any questions that you guys have specifically for Dr. Julie Slattery, please comment below. I'm sure she would love to get your questions. I'll put a link to her website and resources and her podcast, Authentic Intimacy, so you can explore what she's about and come up with some really good questions that I'm happy to ask her. But this week I wanted to share a really honest, nuanced conversation on the God is Great podcast between me and a former stripper named Harmony Dust Grillo. She is the founder of Treasures, a nonprofit which helps women get out of the sex industry.
Monique was a compilation of other people's fantasies. Monique wasn't a real person. She was someone that I could hide behind while I was working in the sex industry.
Me, being such a liberal feminist Christian, I hesitate to put any rules or restrictions on anyone else's sexuality. Just because we're coming into an era of sex positivity, some women are creating their own pornography, hookup culture is more accepted, so it feels a bit controversial at times to say, I don't agree with everything going on. On the other hand, this is a Christian YouTube channel, so I am going to be honest with you guys when something is not hitting me the right way.
I was so broken just from years of abuse and low self-esteem. A lot of people think, the sex industry is so glamorous and so empowering, but it's hard.
Harmony did illuminate a lot to me about the sex industry.
The only way to survive the sex industry is to become totally numb. So whether that's through drugs or through dissociation that many of us are capable of doing because we've had histories of incredible trauma and rape and abuse, the only way to survive it is to disconnect completely.
When you're looking at yourself as a product, all of your worth is conditional on whether or not someone else notices it. And when you're a person, you're worth it because God says you're worth it. Because you are a human being and you were put on this earth for a purpose.
Harmony has some really strong ideas, and rightfully so. She was in the sex industry. She's been helping women get out of the sex industry for 15 years, so her concepts might be read as a little more conservative. She acknowledges there's a possibility that people are enjoying their time in the sex industry, but she's coming from a lot of expertise, and it's definitely worth hearing her out.
What I don't think everyone realizes is that 70% of female trafficking victims are trafficked into the commercial sex industry. That means they're working in strip clubs, they're working on porn sets, they're working for escort agencies. We can't turn a blind eye to that.
She has helped thousands of women get out of the sex industry, whether they were trafficked, abused, their pimps were stealing their money, all kinds of different circumstances. Harmony mentions that 80% of women in the sex industry have actually said they would like to get out.
The sex industry, prostitution, I say, was the most soul-destroying 12 months of my life. I have a lot of young girls say to me, 12 months isn't very long. It's like 12 seconds is too long. You know, I was somebody's daughter and I was being paid money to have sex with strangers night after night after night after stranger, with no idea of my worth, with no idea of my value.
Treasures was never about getting people saved or pulling strippers out of the club or shaming them.
I was inspired to start Treasures because of my own life experiences and having worked in the sex industry as a stripper and remembering how challenging that was, how much pain I was in. And once I got out and I got free, I wanted there to be a resource for other women who were feeling as trapped as I did.
I was working at a club in LA. About 2 years into it, Treasures began having outreach. And so they came to our club. The gift bags in that environment, that was the only instance that I was ever, and I mean this wholeheartedly, that I was ever given anything that no one asked me for something in return. I felt extremely loved and valued by that statement that they made to sacrifice time and safety to give me one little thing. I mean, it changed the way that I looked at me. I thought, well, they see me a certain way. Maybe I should too.
And for anyone that talks about righteous judgment and how it's our call to tell people what they're doing wrong, I also think it's interesting that Harmony mentions the girl that helped her get out of the club, that brought her to church, was someone that just loved her.
Ultimately, what got me out of that, it began with a friendship and just a person who loved me unconditionally and didn't judge me for the crazy life that I was living.
Their friendship was never conditioned upon whether or not Harmony was going to go to church. She just allowed Harmony to be who she was. She was at church and still stripping for a portion of time.
I would go to church on a Wednesday night and go to the strip club afterwards for my shift because that was my job.
I hope you guys will really enjoy our conversation. We sat right back there on my bed and we had this really interesting realization where Harmony came from such a rough background. So when she entered church, sexually broken, and heard the message of purity and abstinence, I believe she found them very inspiring and very helpful in her sexual healing. Whereas I came from this background where I entered church really sexually whole. I was developing very normally. I was a preteen. I hadn't been exposed to any sexual behavior, never saw pornography. And I felt the church did so much damage to me. Those same messages of purity and abstinence tended to shame me. So Harmony and I basically came from completely different directions, met here, and had really different experiences with the church and how they handled sexuality. She became an abstinent stripper. She saved herself leading up to her marriage that she's in now, whereas I want to buck abstinence and I get scared when people try to put rules and regulations on me because they've hurt me so much. So it was a really interesting, great learning experience for both of us. For this episode, we describe what sex positivity means to each of us, as well as diving into the complexity of sex trafficking, pornography, sexual abuse, and trauma bonds. I do need to give you guys a trigger warning because we are openly talking about sexual abuse and some sticky subjects. So if you're not ready to face all that, don't worry, no pressure. Also, any of you that are coming out of sexual abuse or trauma, you might be really encouraged by the way that Harmony has walked through that. She does not sugarcoat it or say that it was easy. She tells the truth. It's hard, but she is someone that might inspire you to believe that you can get healed. In the comment section, let's talk about sex positivity. What does it mean to you guys? A lot of you guys ask what it means to me, and I will be telling you in the upcoming weeks, but let me know what it means to you. Does it mean purity? Does it mean honoring your body in a specific way? Let's talk about it. Last but definitely not least, we have almost hit 20,000 people in our God is Grey community. I am so excited you guys are a part of it. Thank you so much. Please continue to like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Maybe we can hit 20K by New Year's Eve. Also, if you can donate, hit the show more button below and the link will be there. Some of you guys are asking, what on earth is Patreon? Where does this money go? I am not buying myself fancy things or taking myself out to dinner. I actually want to pour every dollar back into God is Gray. I want to buy nicer podcast equipment because the sound quality isn't exactly up to par. I want to travel to see you guys. I would love to do meetups around the country. In general, just anything I can do to keep building our God is Gray community. Unfortunately, these things require money, so if you guys can help, I appreciate it so much. That's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys. God bless.